Hello everybody, my name is Feagle and welcome back to another Nuzlocking video. Last time we did Pokemon Platinum, but this time around I decided to switch it up, going to Gen 5 and playing Pokemon Black. Now this is a game I have much less experience in. Pokemon Platinum is a game that I've beaten before. Well, actually I've beaten Pearl, but almost the same thing. Pokemon Black and White are games that I've only ever really gone up to the 4th or 5th gym in. I frankly haven't seen any further, and I'm excited to get some new experiences in. So, today we're going to be trying a hardcore Nuzlocke of this very game. Let's see how it goes. But before the video starts, I need to ask all of you to please like, subscribe, and comment under this video. It'd be really appreciated to help the channel grow. Now, as all journeys will, we start in Mom's house, where our friends Bianca and Charon eagerly await their first Pokemon. In front of us is a box filled with these absolute weapons given to us by Professor Juniper. After opening up the box, my random number generator decides that Snivy will be my starter, and frankly, I don't know how I feel about that. Honestly, I don't really like any of the Gen 5 starters. Oshawott is great, and Duat is even better, but Samurott is, well, not my favorite. To be honest with you, neither are the others, but hey, what can you do? I expect to box this thing pretty soon, but for now I name it Flora and head on to the next route. There we catch a Lillipup that I name Scrappy, and we move into Accumula Town. After healing up my Pokemon, I head over a bit west where a green-haired man is making a speech about philosophy. I'm starting to notice a trend, before a green-haired boy approaches me and claims that he can hear my Pokemon talking. Yeah, I can too, buddy. They're saying their names. He then challenges me to a battle where I easily curb stomp him. Moving forward onto the next route, we beat a few trainers and catch a wild Purloin. Now, honestly, I don't expect much of this thing, but for now it can use Cut, which is pretty cool to me. After trampling over Bianca, we make it to Striaton City. There, we move into the Dream Yard, where we pick up ourselves one of the elemental monkeys. Since Snivy was our starter, we get ourselves Panpour. Then, we head back into town, go to the trainer school, and talk to Charon. He wants to have a battle, which ends pretty quickly, with Scrappy completely destroying him. Then, we move back to the gym. After beating a few trainers, the battle begins. Honestly, Chili, being our opponent thanks to our grass starter, is, well, a complete breeze. Scrappy completely walks all over him, destroying both of his Pokemon, an intimidating Lillipup, and an ever-so-frightening Pansear. Whew, man, don't make me scared like that. After beating the gym, I head over to the Dream Yard, where I can get a few items, as well as a brand new encounter, that being a Patrat. I'm sure he'll do great. I name him Beetle and carry on. After doing a little more tutorial bullshit, we can make our way west. Moving past the daycare, Charon wants another battle, which we oblige. Immediately after beating him, Scrappy finally evolves into his next evolution, Herdier, which is pretty cool because now it has Intimidate, which can put in some serious work against trainers in the future. Bianca then tells us that a small child has had their Pokemon stolen by Team Plasma, the team that was making a speech over in Striaton. Well, hearing a small girl in need, Charon white knights the fuck out and runs over to the cave in order to save the Pokemon, telling me to come with him, of course. So, naturally I oblige, but not before I get another encounter. Now, our next encounter that I find in the grass nearby is a wild Pidove. I name him Mono, and continue on to the cave where Charon is waiting for me. Upon entering, we completely bowl over some Plasma Grunts with terrible teams. Then we continue on further to not only grab an item, but our next encounter, a Woobat. Now, I name this Woobat Zorp and carry on. Since it's a friendship evolution, though, I should be able to evolve it pretty soon. But for now, I just continue on doing my business. I blast my way over to the next city, that being Nacrene City, where the museum and the normal gym are. But before I do that, I need to catch myself one more encounter, that being a time pole that I named Popple. After this, we make our way back over into the heart of Nacrene, where we're going to face the normal-type gym leader, Lenora. However, before that, we have to face down N again, who's gotten a little bit stronger, but honestly isn't much of a challenge, which you might notice is a bit of a trend with these early game rivals. Upon entering the gym, some guy I don't know shows me around, showing me a dinosaur fossil and then a bunch of other stuff that isn't nearly as cool as a dinosaur fossil. Then I move forward, talk to Clyde, who gives me some water. Thanks, Clyde, I appreciate it. Then I battle a few trainers who are gatekeeping the way into Lenora's main gym room. After doing a bit of trivia designed for a 3-year-old, not a 6-year-old, which means I can solve it, I find myself facing down Lenora. I level up every member of the team to reach the level cap. This includes evolving both Beetle and Flora. Now, going into Lenora, I'll need a proper plan. After all, there is one particular part of this gym battle that is actually pretty difficult, that being Retaliate. You see, her Watchog knows it, and Retaliate doubles in power to be 140 if it's used immediately after an ally faints. And since Watchog is a normal type, this is effectively a 210 base power move flying out of the gate at one of my Pokémon, which they might not be able to take right on the chin. I lead off with Flora, who takes an Intimidate for Herdier. However, Flora doesn't really care since its main move, Leaf Tornado, is special. He then begins to beat down the Herdier repeatedly with it. Lenora, thankfully, wastes her full restores on Herdier, but eventually he goes down to a Leaf Tornado. Immediately after, Watchog comes out. Now, here comes my masterful plan that will help me defeat this mighty beast. Go get him, Beetle, I'm sure you've got this. Show him your awesome powers. Shockingly, Beetle survives the suicide play, however, I ain't here to play games and send him out to you and a hypnosis. He actually does, surprising me, and I imagine us all. So, I have a few more turns to do whatever I want with him. Now, to be honest with you, this is do or die for Beetle. He has no choice but to perform here. So, the first thing he does is launch a Confuse Ray at the opponent. Then, I have him bite down at him and attempt to kill him. However, Watchog soon wakes up and hits a Retaliate, killing him. So, whatever, Beetle tried his best. Anywho, an actual Pokemon comes out to finish the job, that being Scrappy. However, after a few takedowns, Watchog is somehow still standing, and Scrappy is getting a little too low for comfort. Afraid he might die, I switch into Mono, who finally finishes the job with a quick attack after dodging a hypnosis, giving us the badge we've been looking for. After leaving the fight with Lenora, I immediately find out that Team Plasma is robbing the museum. In fact, they rip the head straight off of the dinosaur skeleton that was in the main lobby, which I am incredibly furious about. So furious that I vow permanent revenge against Team Plasma for its transgressions. Nobody messes with the dinosaur skeleton in a museum. You should know that from Night at the Museum, a documentary on museums themselves. I then do a little bit of swapping around in the box, getting my team together, and since Zorp is a friendship evolution, I go ahead and evolve him into Swoobat, which is only marginally better than Woobat, but hey, better is better. Not to mention, a fully evolved Pokemon this early in the game can't possibly hurt. I then make my way into the nearby forest, chasing after the Team Galactic grunts with the urgency of a Sunday driver. There, I catch a Pokemon that I named Addles. Now, funnily enough, this actually isn't a new encounter zone from where I caught Pidove, making Addles an illegal encounter. However, I would not find this out until significantly later in the playthrough, and it doesn't particularly matter since neither of those members play a huge role in the game to come, which you'll see later. After battling through a few more trainers who are stopping me in my conquest for justice, and a few more Team Plasma grunts who try to cover their escape, I eventually find the perpetrator in question. However, we're unable to recover the dinosaur head, which has me in mourning. I then push my way forward over the bridge and into Castelia City, which is fucking massive as you may have noticed, which means there's a ton of items and interactions available here. I scour the entire city, looking around for each and every one that I can get that'll give me an advantage. Now, I'm not entirely worried about Berg with my 2 flying types, however, it's good to be prepared. I make my way over to the Battle Company, where I completely annihilate most of the trainers here, getting myself a couple of items and beating the CEO, who's disguised as janitor. I get the TM for Flash, as well as Attract and Rest while I'm at it. Then, moving along, I try to go to the gym, where Charon tells me to fuck off, and I have to go fight Team Plasma again. Well, I say fight, I actually end up just going to the building and having a peaceful discussion with them, while Berg, I don't know, yells or something, I wasn't paying attention. However, before I challenge Berg, I need to go get one more encounter. I run up north to Route 4, where there's a bit of a desert going on, and I catch a Scraggy that I name Havoc. I don't think I'll be using him for this particular gym, however, he's still a great encounter to have. Fighting Dark in this generation is a fantastic typing, and Scraggy into Scrafty is actually a really good Pokemon that can handle a lot of the Elite Four, so I need to make sure to handle this thing with care until that time comes. However, while I'm wandering around, I also manage to happen upon a Water Stone, which I use to evolve Aqua into a Simipour. And then I remember that stone evolutions stop getting moves after they evolve, which means I've learned fucking nothing from Togekiss. After this, I can finally evolve Mono into a Tranquil. And with that, I have all of my encounters done leading up to the gym. So, upon entering Berg's gym for the 80th time, I go up to finally challenge the man. I lead with Mono, who easily takes care of Whirlipede. However, when Dwebble comes out, I don't think he's up to the task, and I'm afraid of Smackdown. So I send out Aqua, who is forced to use Water Gun, which he probably will be until I learn Surf, and takes out the Dwebble. However, Leavanny comes out next, so I'm forced to switch out. I send out Mono, who takes some pretty heavy damage. Thankfully, he resists all of Leavanny's moves, and can hit back with 4 times super effective air cutters. Shockingly, he doesn't actually kill Leavanny on the first go, but a little bit later, and air cutters takes it down again. With that, I have my 3rd gym badge under my belt, and frankly, I've only ever seen 1 death, and it was of my own design. So, feeling pretty confident, I'm ready to head on over to the Desert Resort. However, before I can do that, I have to stomp Charon in another battle. He leads with a level 20 Pit of, which is honestly kind of pathetic. Scrappy lands an Intimidate on it and takes it down pretty easily with, well, Take Down. Pig Knight comes out next, and since Scrappy is on a little low health thanks to Recoil, I switch out into Zorp. He just uses Defense Curl, which is whatever, as Zorp hits a Confusion. He then uses another Defense Curl like a dumbass, and, well, Zorp takes it out with a 2nd Confusion. Out next comes a whole-ass Liepard, so I switch to Havoc. Well, I try to, as another Psychic type gets Pursuit trapped and dies. Well, you will be missed, Zorp. Havoc comes out and kills the Liepard pretty easily, but it sucks that we lose our Swoobat this early. But hey, it was gonna fall off anyway, so it's not a horrible thing to lose. I replace him with Addles and move along my way. Thanks to Addles being a pretty early evolution, and his next evolution being a friendship evolution, we can get him up to a Leavanny pretty quickly, and so now we have a whole-ass, fully evolved grass bug type on our team. And while its weaknesses are pretty extreme, Leavanny does actually hit really hard and is pretty quick, so hopefully he'll be extremely useful in the future. I then barrel my way north, making my way past a few trainers, picking up a few items, and running over to the Desert Resort. It's here where I grab a metric shit ton of items lying around on the ground, and I manage to catch a Maractus. I name it Puncture, and carry on with it sitting in the box. Honestly, Maractus is kind of forgettable, but hey, I can use it as a good grass type on my team of already 3 grass types. I then walk past a bunch of sleeping Zen mode Darmanitan, and continue my way into Relic Castle, where I'll be finding my next encounter. Now, Relic Castle has some pretty cool encounters, one of which being a Yamask that I named Raz. Now, a ghost type is pretty cool, and honestly, I've never used Confagringus before, so I'm excited to get the ball rolling with this one, much similar to the wall in the last run. After briefly talking to the Professor and Charon, I entered Nimbasa City, where a couple of Team Plasma Grunts are harassing an innocent old man for their image or something. However, as it turns out, this man owns the daycare, and they were harassing him to get their hands on his Pokemon and liberate them, as if it were some kind of rare oil. He quickly runs behind me, and I very handily beat them in a battle. As a thanks, the man gives me a bicycle, which I never use, and I prepare myself to fight Elisa. However, before that, I've got one encounter that I remember for the moment. Technically, I could get 2 more encounters after this one, however, I forgot about both of them, and just go catch the first thing I see. I make the mistake of walking into Wrestling Grass, where I find a Audino. I name it Vida, and then promptly forget about its existence. I head east towards the gym, where that green-haired boy approaches me and asks me to get on the Ferris wheel with him. A little confused, I say yes, where we ride around at an uncomfortably slow speed for way too long as he preaches about, you guessed it, philosophy. After getting off the Ferris wheel, he challenges me to a battle. And honestly, it's not very hard at all. Mono beats down the Sandile until it's dead, then Darumaka comes out. Thankfully, I've got a pretty bulky Pokemon at the wings. I send out Havoc, who immediately fucking dies. Well, Yeah, no, leave it to me to lose that encounter. I send out Scrappy afterwards, who gets out an Intimidate and then takes down the Darumaka. He sends out a Scraggy of his own, almost insulting me for my loss, before I bring out Addles, who can counter Scraggy in pretty much every way possible. I then beat it down until it gets me too low to stay in, so I send out Scrappy, who gets off an Intimidate. Scrappy then takes it down with a Takedown, and Sigilif comes out next. He hits Scrappy with a Psybeam, but Scrappy, thanks to its Eviolite, is tanking these hits pretty well. He then beats it down with Crutches and successfully manages to kill it. and then gets uncomfortably close to the point where I think he's about to lean in for a kiss. However, I'm not into femboys and turn around and leave. I then prepare my team of electric resists and my 1 immunity for battling Elisa. Now, Time Bolt isn't the best way to defeat her, thanks to her 2 Emolgas, but just before the level cap comes up, I can evolve it, giving it the grab typing and making it a pretty surefire win. After all, if I can just be immune to those Volt Switches, I imagine Elisa can't do much to me at all, so Popple is ready. I get everybody up to the level cap and get ready to battle. I then lay the beat down on a few trainers and ride the roller coasters all the while. Then I pull up on Elisa. Well, she leads off with one of her Emolgas, and I lead off with Popple. Now, I don't expect Emolga to actually do much, as it uses Pursuit on Popple for a little over 20 damage. That's more than expected. Then it hits an Aerial Ace, bringing Popple down into the yellow, which is concerning to say the least. Elisa uses a Hyper Potion as Popple lands 2 Bubble Beams on it, but now it's way too low, so I have to switch him out, but the question is to who? I think about Addles for a second before I remember, oh right, Aerial Ace, and then I send out Roz, who is decently bulky. I ask him to hit a Will-O-Wisp, however, he manages to miss. But he's got enough health for another one, so I tell him to hit Will-O-Wisp again. And he misses again. Well, at this point, I'm not really sure what to do, so I send out Puncture, who thankfully resists the electric-type moves. However, they immediately get hit by an Aerial Ace down to half, and I'm immediately forced to sack them, only to get off 1 attack. However, Scrappy comes out next, landing an Intimidate, which doesn't matter because Volt Switch comes out dealing decent damage. However, Takedown hits the next Emolga, but I get unlucky and get paralyzed. However, at a point where the last one comes in, even when it's on the red, Scrappy is way too low to deal with it, so I'm forced to switch out into Roz, who dies. Next out comes the big bad Zebstrika, and honestly my team is looking pretty shitty. I have no choice but to send out a Pokemon, and I decide that that Pokemon is going to be Mono. There's no way Addles lives a 4-time super effective Flame Charge, so I just decide that maybe Mono can get something done. However, he goes down to a single Volt Switch. At this point, things are looking really bad, and I need a safe switch into Zebstrika. So I send out Scrappy, praying it can live a Volt Switch, however he just goes down. Zebstrika comes back out, and at this point, I just send out Popple, hoping he does some dumb shit. He doesn't, taking him out. Addles comes out, and at this point it's all but over. However, Addles somehow lives the Flame Charge, but doesn't secure the kill back with Razor Leaf, and dies to a Spark. So that's it. All 6 of my Pokemon dead at the hands of Elisa. Now, normally most Nuzlockes would restart it around here, but I play a little differently. I have it nowhere in my rules that a whiteout means a loss. No, only that you can catch the first Pokemon of each route and no more, and that if a Pokemon faints, it's considered dead. The lose condition is when you have no more Pokemon. I happen to have a box filled with Ace... I happen to have a box filled with good... with Pokemon. The box has Pokemon in it, which means that this run is not technically over. As much as I'm excited to use these guys. So I have to think of a plan on how these 4 idiots will actually manage to pull together a win. So I evolve all 4 of them up to the level cap and prepare as best as I can for this fight. Now, at the very least, I can say a few things about this team. Most of them are fully evolved Pokemon, which is a nice touch. But, most importantly, Noir has an incredible speed tier, managing to outspeed Elisa's Emolgas and hopefully her Zebstrika. Aqua is dead weight. But Vita is actually really bulky. Its normal typing means it's not really weak to anything other than fighting, which Elisa isn't packing, and it can take a few Volt Switches before it goes. I give it Retaliate so that if my original plan fucks up, it can at least try and take out something. Flora is given the Eviolite, but I don't expect him to really do much with the Aerial Aces flying around. Frankly, at the time, I was thinking it would be a total wipe, but I at least still wanted to try. I give the Black Glasses to Noir, and decide that my best bet is to go for a sweep with him. Since he's so ridiculously fast, I bet that he can set up a few Hone Clauses while the Emolgas fuck around, and sweep the gym with his Stab Dark-type moves. Now, that move may be the 40 base power Pursuit, but, you know, here's hoping. So, we re-enter the gym and get ready for our second challenge. our box already full of dead Pokemon, I don't expect this to go well. As expected, Elisa leads with her Emolga, and luckily Noir manages to outspeed it. So I set up one Honeclaws, and Noir immediately gets crit by Volt Switch. Well, at the very least I'm still faster, and then get killed by Quick Attack. I didn't exactly have high hopes for the cat anyway, so with my first best option out, I send out my second best option. Vita comes in and hits him with a Retaliate, which does big damage to the Emolga that comes in on the Volt Switch. Vita only has one thing left to do, and that's sit here and spam it some more. It actually manages to take out one of the Emolga. Soon after, Zebstrika comes out on a Volt Switch, and predicting it, I send Vita underground with a Dig. Vita comes back up and deals less than optimal damage, so that just leaves me with two more Pokemon. I send out Flora, fully expecting him to get hit with the absolute nastiest Flame Charge. However, for whatever reason, Elisa uses Quick Attack, and Flora gets off a free Grass Knot, bringing Zebstrika down into the red. I then click Mega Drain as she uses a Hyper Potion. So, now that Zebstrika is back in the full, I decide to try and outlast the thing, since Flora is holding an Eviolite to increase its bulk. I throw out a Leech Seed, but I'm still confused as to why Elisa blatantly refuses to click Flame Charge. Elisa does, but it actually does completely pathetic damage. And as Leech Seed slowly heals me back to full, I see an opening for a win. Flora sets up as many growths as I can possibly justify, as Elisa heals the useless Zebstrika back up to full. However, a few more Mega Drains take it out, leaving just the Emolga. Now, funnily enough, Emolga doesn't even go for Aerial Ace here, which I don't understand how Elisa doesn't know what a super effective move is, but it gets hit with a Mega Drain, bringing it down into the red. It then finally goes for Aerial Ace, which does practically nothing, and Flora kills the Emolga. Wow, I wasn't expecting Flora to do this much work. When I picked this thing up, I thought it was going to be completely useless, but it actually turned out to be a sleeper hit, taking down Elisa with ease. Well, alright, now I'm excited to use this thing going forward. So, after putting our new two corpses into the gravestone box, I then make my way over to the music festival, where me and Bianca talk to a strange guy who gives out things that I will never use ever, then I leave the building. Bianca's dad pulls up and tells her to go home because this trip is dangerous, but then an adult woman steps into family business and tells him that Pokemon are cool and he's whack, so he leaves, having fully changed his mind. So then I go onto Route 5, where I can try and get my next encounter. However, unbeknownst to me, Charon is waiting to jump scare my ass. However, I soon find out that he's actually at lower level than Elisa was, so I can take him out pretty easily with a combination of Flora spamming Leech Seed and Grass Knot, and Aqua coming in to fight the Tranquil and Pignite. After this is done, Elisa comes and they heal my Pokemon, but bring me into a forced battle against two random people that Alder found lying on the side of the road. Who's Alder? Well, apparently he's the champion, just goofing around at some truck stop in the middle of nowhere, as Charon points out. For once, I'll actually agree with this nerd, this is kinda strange. He then forces us to fight two toddlers who lead into double Herdiers. Well, frankly, I'm not too worried. Flora has already proven that he's bulky as all shit, as he attempts to put a Leech Seed on one of the Herdiers. However, he misses his first Leech Seed, accomplishing nothing. So I just try and Leech Seed the second one. Then, the first Herdier hits me for a critical hit, which does crazy damage. And then the second one does the exact same thing, double critting Flora into the dirt with no effort. Well, shit. I'm now in an even worse situation, but thankfully Aqua survives, taking care of the other two Herdiers, and we're out of the first battle with just a Simipour. That's right. One Simipour is holding this entire team together, and it's going to be using Water Gun until the 7th gym. Well, at the very least, all is not lost, as I have two encounters, those being the two I forgot about before going into Elisa. I grab myself a Minchino, which sadly has Cute Charm instead of Technician, but you know, beggars can't be choosers. I then move over to Lost Lorn Forest, where I can catch a small variety of encounters. Now, it's here, thanks to Dupe's Claws, that I can only catch either a Venipede or a Cottony. Cottony would be the preferable catch, since I'm going up against the ground gym soon, so having some stab grass moves would be nice, though I don't expect Whimsicott to do a ton of work. Luckily for me, I do indeed find that Whimsicott that I was just speaking about, and I decided to name him Wise. Though, at the time, he was just some random grass type I picked up, little did I know that he would be the single craziest member of this team. The GOAT, if you would. He will carry us through so much pain. A little bit later, I'm allowed access onto Driftvale Bridge. Now, here, actually, you can get yourself an encounter. If you look out for these little shadow spots, you'll see that birds are flying over the bridge. Approach one, and there's a chance you'll get into a Pokemon battle. It's here that I catch a Ducklet, my only encounter I could have gotten on the bridge, which is nice. It's basically a free water type right before the ground gym. Unfortunately for me, this thing will not evolve before the ground gym, which means I'm stuck with this dumbass duck fighting an Excadrill. Soon afterwards, my Minccino 5s gets access to Tail Slap, and we can actually start doing some big damage with him. Similarly, Wise gets Giga Drain, the move I was waiting on before evolving him. Thankfully for me, I already have the Sunstone I'll need to evolve it into a Whimsicott, but I don't actually need one until I get to Clay himself, so I don't evolve him just yet. So I decide that since Clay is coming up and the level cap is getting pretty thin going into cold storage, that I'm going to be using 5s for most of my battles. As I go up to the next route, I pretty much exclusively lead with him since we're going up here for a specific reason. Not only to get our next encounter, but also to get the shiny stone that's up in the house at the end of this route. That'll help us evolve him into Cinccino, which is a much stronger Pokemon. Now, yes, I understand that this time around it will not be learning any moves after it evolves with the stone, but frankly it has Tail Slap and needs a little else. Anything else it might need can be gotten from TMs. It's up here that I catch a Karrablast, which is going to be utterly useless other than resisting ground this one time, and I continue on north, dodging and battling a few trainers as I go. Now this route is actually kind of dangerous, featuring a lot of trainers spamming X items, which can do some big damage. However, we managed to scrape by and actually grab the said stone. I then evolve 5s into Cinccino, and we can start getting to work. I head south towards cold storage while beginning my next encounter. Now, down here at cold storage, there are only 4 encounters you can get. A Herdier, a Timber, a Minccino, and a Vanillite. Now, I could really use a Timber. Vanillite would be nice and all as an ice type going into the ground gym, but with all their rock coverage and its slow speed and it evolving 1 level after the gym, which, seriously, means that Timber would be extremely preferable. After all, I'd be able to get Girder just before Clay, and could give him the Eviolite item to make him incredibly tanky, allowing him to blast through Clay's ground types. However, unfortunately for me, while I'm down here, I find a Vanillite, which is going to be utterly useless in the face of Clay. Then I make my way into the facility itself, where I find some Nevermelt Ice, and battle a bunch of Team Plasma Grunts that are just sitting inside of a freezer before getting arrested. Clay then tells me that maybe I'm not so bad for having nothing to do with a bunch of Team Plasma Grunts escaping, because they didn't actually escape. Then, when I go to approach the gym, he immediately lets the Team Plasma Grunts escape, after yelling at me about it. What an interesting guy that Clay is. I then begin to level up all of my Pokemon to the cap, including Wise finally becoming the Whimsicott he was always destined to be. This thing is a monster, and it will prove to be a monster time and time again as this run continues. I then somehow manage to maneuver my way through the gym trainers and flying platforms located in Clay's gym. I wonder briefly about what the safety regulations in Unova must look like before I finally reach the actual man himself. Now, the fight with Clay begins. Honestly, I was pretty worried about this fight going into it, but I have something that he doesn't. A Whimsicott. I lead out Whimsicott into Krokorok, and Wise immediately one-hit KOs it with a Giga Drain. Excadrill comes out next, but that was part of my plan. Wise first uses a Cotton Spore, which halves its speed. Technically I should have gone for Charm first, but I don't have an excuse for that. I should have gone for Charm first. But I go for Charm second, which takes Excadrill's attacking stat down to half. He then hits me with a Bulldoze to try and become faster than me because the AI is weird like that, so Wise can hit another Charm, halving its attack stat again as it goes for another Bulldoze. Thanks to the fact that it is now getting incredibly low, I start to hit it with Giga Drains. Thanks to the Shell Bell that I equip on Wise, this actually gets me a ton of healing as I go. This Shell Bell will actually never leave Wise for the entire playthrough, as the combination of this and Giga Drain is just too good to pass up on. Wise then continues to beat down on the Excadrill as it desperately tries to set up Home Claws to recover its poor attack stat. However, eventually Wise actually runs out of Giga Drains. Wise then lands a Stun Spore, which paralyzes the Excadrill, making it somehow even slower, before I switch out to the Duck, who's going to take care of Excadrill using Water Pulse. He actually deals more damage than I expect with his Rock Slides, but Mako should be fine here so long as he doesn't get crit. Then Mako gets crit. Yeah, my bad, Chief. Should have been Aqua. Either way, in the end, Palpitoad comes out, and a single Grass Knot takes it to the Shadow Realm where it belongs, and we get ourselves a badge from Clay, only taking one loss in the process, which is a win to me. As I leave in the area, however, Bianca challenges me to a Pokemon battle. I, of course, oblige, because I have no choice in the matter. Herdier is taken down pretty easily by Wise as Pansear comes out. However, Aqua shows up and takes it down with 2 Water Guns as Pansear fails to do anything of note. Musharna comes out next, and thankfully for me, Aqua still has Bite. It flinches it down the first time and then kills it with second Bite. Duat comes out next, which gets hit with a Grass Knot. He then hits me with a Water Pulse after surviving, but Aqua breaks through and manages to hit another Grass Knot. After all, I've learned nothing about confusion hacks from my run last time. She then congratulates me on beating her ass, and then I head back to the Pokemon Center to heal before jumping back into the route. After moving forward, Clay reveals to me that the secret to moving spiderwebs is ground types. Then I move into the actual cave itself and catch a Joltik, which is a great encounter that evolves 1 level after the upcoming level cap. Seriously, that's the second time this has happened. Why does Black and White hate low-level evolutions so much? Well, whatever, I still catch it anyways, expecting to use it right after Skyla. While in Chargestone Cave, I push around a few crystals, get some nuggets from some weird dudes, pick up several items, beat a lot of trainers, and burn through a ton of repels while I'm here. Thankfully, I stocked up before I left so that I could save time by not running into as many wild Pokemon. Here, I find out that Team Plasma are in the cave, and I fight a lot of them. Wise and Fives, a dynamic duo, put in a ton of work, taking out the local Scraggy and Trubbish population easily. However, I noticed during this whole process that Fives tends to have a habit of missing a ton of his tail slaps, a move that is supposedly 85% accurate. Now, I don't know if he's just showing off because he knows he can win in the end, but I somewhat have a feeling that this will be the death of him. Upon approaching the end of the cave, N finds me again and challenges me to a battle. I lead Fives into a Boldore, which is just not a good lead, so I switch out immediately into Aqua, who can easily take care of this. He sets up Iron Defenses on a specially attacking water type, so he goes down pretty easily. Joltik comes out next, and since I don't fear it at all, I leave Aqua in for 1 attack, hitting a Water Gun against an Electroweb that wouldn't have killed me even if it crit. I then send out my own Joltik, Voltage, in order to 1v1 him. After a few bug bites, he's taken down. Ferroseed comes back next, and honestly I don't have a fantastic answer to this. However, I do have Kennen, who is a special attacker. Not because he actually has a good special attack stat, but because he learns Bug Buzz at a fairly early level. I then spam that until Ferroseed dies. Clink comes out next, and I don't really have a great answer to this one either, but I send out Aqua, who resists his gear grinds. I then hit him with the Water Gun down to about half, before Clink hits a Charge Beam. This honestly worries me a little bit, as I don't have a very good answer to this, but I send out Fives, who is ready to take the blow. Thankfully, Clink has basically no special attack, so a couple of tail slaps later, and it's dead. Then Juniper and Bianca show up and talk about nothing for a while as N runs off. I then make it into Mistralton City, where I heal my Pokemon and talk to Skyla for a little bit, alongside some other weird guy who apparently used to be Professor. I move out into the wild to catch my next encounter before Skyla, and very luckily for me, it's a Zebstrika. So, attempting not to kill it, I send out Wise, who clicks Giga Drain, and thirsting for blood, it immediately critical hits it and nearly kills it, leaving out just 1 HP. Thankfully, however, I do end up catching it and naming it Pride. This will come in handy greatly for Skyla's gym. Originally, I was kind of worried, not sure my team could actually take her, but with the addition of Zebstrika, it should be a breeze. I pull him out of the death box where he was automatically placed because, surprise surprise, it was the last box I had open. Before I battle Skyla, I need to make it over to a Celestial Tower and actually get her ass down. So, I make my way over there and enter. Now, on the first floor, there's no encounters, but on the second, I have a really high chance of getting a Litwick, which would be nice. So I run around until, surely enough, I find a Litwick. Now, the thing about Litwick is that it doesn't evolve into a crazy late level, but it is an amazing Pokemon when it does. So, when I actually am able to use it, it'll come in handy as a nice member of the team. And as it turns out, it's even modest too, a perfect nature boosting its already crazy special attack. This Chandelure is about to go insane. After fighting through the vicious trainers to get to the top of the tower, Skyla looks at me and tells me to ring a bell. I do, and she looks at me and says I'm a kind person. I don't know how you get all that from a bell, but I assume she's on drugs and run out to the end of the tower. Then, upon making it back, I go to Skyla's gym. Now, this gym is a blatant violation of every OSHA regulation in the book. I mean, seriously, I don't know if Skyla gets off on firing small children out of a cannon, but whatever. I blast through most of the flying types in the gym using just pride, until eventually I make it to Skyla herself. She leads out with the Swoobat, and I of course lead out with pride. Now, Swoobat is basically no threat as he goes down in a single spark. Unpheasant comes out next to try and do its best to beat Pride, however, I lead with a spark, immediately taking it down into red. However, Skyla, much to her detriment, sets up a Razor Wind, which takes 2 turns to fire, giving me a free turn of attacking and taking down Unpheasant. Last but not least, actually no, definitely least, is Swanna, who immediately gets destroyed by a 4x super effective spark. Pride basically destroys this gym with no challenge whatsoever. I don't even think he took any damage for that entire time. Right after this level cap is met, Joltik evolves into Galvantula, and now Voltage is ready to properly rumble. Learning Bug Buzz as well, replacing its original Bug Bite, which is truly terrible. However, as I move along, I make it to Twist Mountain, where Charon challenges me to another surprise Pokemon battle. However, with my brand new team of 6 banger Pokemon, I'm ready for him. He leads Unpheasant into Pride, who gets brought down into the yellow, and taunts me for some reason as he gets taken down by another Spark. Pignite comes out next, and Pride hits him with a Spark, dealing almost no damage as he hits me with a Takedown, which does way more than I expected. So I switch into Aqua, who's ready to fight him. Aqua quickly takes him down with a Water Gun, and is forced to switch out after Pansage comes in. Now, honestly, I don't expect much from Pansage here. After all, the Elemental Monkeys aren't even that good. So I switch out to Fring, who should be able to take any sort of, oh my, that was not even a crit. Okay, I switch out to Voltage, who should be able to take his Seed Bomb. However, Voltage takes a solid 33%, hitting back with a Signal Beam that barely doesn't kill. I then go for another Signal Beam, which does take down Simisage, who was pulling up actual LeBron numbers there for a second. But Liepard comes out next, so I switch to Fives on Fake Out, and then Fives gets it Attract with Cute Charm before hitting it with a Tail Slap, which hits twice, because Fives is just like that. Then he hits another Tail Slap, which takes it out, dealing some crazy good damage. You know, honestly, Tail Slap with a Scope Lens is pretty good, considering every other hit has a good chance to crit. Alder jumps 40 feet down from a ledge, breaking both of his legs, as Charon bitches about losing the battle. However, he then hands me the most important item I've ever received in my entire life, the HM for Surf, which is a gift from God. I might as well be praying at Alder's feet, because now I can teach that to Aqua, who desperately needed something stronger than Water Gun. Aqua immediately puts Surf to use, running over a boulder that a hiker nearby was waiting to use on me. I then wander my way into Twist Mountain, where, you guessed it, Clay is waiting for me. He immediately starts yelling at us about Team Plasma before Charon complains, and then we leave. I then walk around on Twist Mountain for a little bit, very confused about where I am because I've never been here before, but after skipping basically anything and everything I could do here, I quickly grab my encounter. It's a boulder that I named Terra. Hopefully this will be pretty useful in the upcoming gym, but other than that I can't think of anything else it'll really do for me. Then me and Charon find a couple of Team Plasma grunts hanging around towards the end of the cave that immediately run away the moment we show up. I then leave the cave and enter Icarus, or Icarus City, I'm not sure which it is, but I'm gonna call it Icarus, where I heal up my Pokemon and get ready for some new encounters. But before I do that, I decide I'm ready for the gym. Then and there. Yes, I don't catch anything else, I walk straight into the gym, where I struggle a little bit with the puzzle, but since it's made for 5-year-olds instead of 6-year-olds, I'm ready for it. After tearing through several gym trainers, I finally make it to Bryson, the Ice-type gym leader. He leads with Vanillish, and I lead with Terra. Terra here is not holding the Eviolite like I thought he was, and that leads to him being way less bulky than I expected. He immediately gets hit with a Mirror Shot, which I wasn't expecting from Vanillish, but responds with a one-hit KO from his Rock Stab. However, Beartic, who comes out next, will not be so easy to defeat. After a few seconds, I decide that Fring is the switch-in, since he resists Beartic's Ice Stab. However, Beartic lands a Brine on him, which does basically nothing. However, he manages to outspeed Fring, which makes me worry about Fring's speed tier before Fring hits a Mirror Shot for basically nothing against the monster. This thing is bulky as all hell. Well, Beartic follows it up with a slash, which brings Fring down to just 8 HP as Fring unleashes a mirror shot. Now, I want to save Fring for the next gym, so I just send out Terra to take his place as a sacrifice. Terra gets hit with a brine, which kills since he's under half health, but that just provides a chance for Aqua to come out next and finish it off with Surf. Aqua hits it with a Surf, bringing it down to just barely red HP as it hits Aqua with a Swagger. Aqua, who is confused, immediately hits themselves in confusion. Because of that, I want to switch Aqua out, and I decide that Fring is the proper sacrifice for the job. I don't want to lose any of my other team members, so this will have to do. Fring immediately dies to a slash, allowing me a safe switch in to Fives, who can go ahead and start charming him down to low health. Fives gets confused by Swagger and hits himself in confusion immediately. After taking an Icicle Crash, he's on extremely low health, so I'm forced out into a different Pokemon. I bring out Voltage, who eats a brine that immediately crits him, which is just poetry. Voltage hits an Electro Ball for almost no damage before meeting an Icicle Crash. I then have to decide if I want to change anything else, and meeting a safe switch in, I decide to go for Electro Web, lowering Beartic's speed and dealing a decent amount of damage. Voltage, on his first debut, immediately goes down. However, this allows a safe switch into Pride, who hits a Flame Charge. However, Beartic hits a Swagger, and Pride hits himself in confusion. He then gets hit with an Icicle Crash, bringing him down to low health. However, Pride manages to stick around and kill the Beartic with a Flame Charge. Cryogonal comes out next, and I'm not confident that Pride can actually kill him, so I bring out Aqua instead. Aqua takes pretty low amounts of damage from Cryogonal, so as long as he doesn't get crit, I can sit here and spam Surfs until the Cryogonal dies. And on the very last Surf, Aqua gets crit and dies. Wow, me and crits just... ooh, man. Well, Fives comes in, since I don't really have any other good options, and he has to hit this Tail Slap, or otherwise it's just the end of the run. He manages to, bringing down Cryogonal and winning us the badge, however our team is once again in tatters. Immediately after this fight, I make my way up north and catch a Cubchoo, which I name Ursa. Ursa will be pretty helpful because its ice typing should help in the next gym coming up, though I am extremely worried about our chances. As it turns out, Team Plasma are currently wrecking shit at the Dragon Tower north of the town, so I pile drive my way through a mountain of their grunts, making my way closer and closer to the top. It's here that we have a few close calls, but we manage to scrape by, picking up a Dragon Fang along the way and making our way up to the top of the tower. Here I get jumped by 4 Plasma Grunts who fail to do anything at all, and I finally level up Fuego into a Lampent, which is pretty nice, but until I get a Dust Stone, it won't be a Chandelure. Anywho, that green-haired boy from before, N, seems to be causing a ruckus at the top of the tower, so when I walk up there, I find out he summoned a black fucking dragon to tear the goddamn thing down. Obviously shocked by this, I go up and talk to him, where he asks me what I think of his Digimon, before he flies off to God knows where. Well, as it turns out, God knows where is Relic Castle, back in the Desert Resort. Now, while I have the TM for Fly, I don't exactly have any Pokemon that can learn it, so the only way to get back there in a timely manner is to drag the dead corpse of the duck out of the box and use it to fly over there. So, careening on the back of my cadaver, I finally make it back to Relic Castle, where I wander around for a little bit, fighting a couple of Team Plasma Grunts, forgetting to record part of it, but only the unimportant parts. Eventually, when I get to the bottom, Sharon and Alder tell me that this was, I don't know, important for some reason, so when we get back up to the top, I get called by the professor and told to go to the Nakreen City Museum. I immediately fly there, where I'm given the Light Stone because I'm the hero or something, and immediately after this I fly my way back up north using the dead body, and make my way up the next route, which I can't find for a solid minute. While surfing, I catch a wild Stunfisk, which I'm sure will see so much use this run. Then I have a couple of terrifying battles with some wild trainers before I actually make it to the bridge. It's here that Bianca challenges me to a sudden surprise Pokemon match because I'm really bad at keeping track of when rival fights are supposed to happen. She leads off and then intimidates Stoutland, which is pretty scary, but thankfully Fuego is immune to most of its moves. So I can fire off a Will-O-Wisp, which obviously misses because I don't think I've hit one of those so far. So I'm forced to switch out to Ursa, who takes a crunch on the switch. Stoutland presses Work Up, but Ursa drops an Icicle Crash like a mixtape, killing the Stoutland in 2 blows. Simisear comes out next, but I don't really have a good switch into it. So I send out Fives on a Flame Burst, and Fives is forced to sacrifice himself in an attempt to get a Sing-Off and try to put it to sleep. It doesn't work. I have to kill this damn Simisear somehow, so I send out Pride, who hits it with a Spark. dealing about half its health bar and damage. He then uses a second spark, which paralyzes it fully this entire turn. However, Bianca then uses a full restore on it, getting back to full health. However, a couple of sparks later, and Simisear is almost dead, but Bianca heals it again, so I'm forced to hit it with even more sparks, eventually killing it. Finally, the big bad Samurott comes out, and Pride hits it with a spark, which isn't quite enough to kill it, before Samurott uses Revenge, killing Pride instead. Wise comes out and finishes off the Samurott, and then follows it up by killing Musharna with several Shadow Balls. Sadly, this is the end of two very important Pokemon, however, the run must go on. I make my way onto the bridge, where famously a couple of ninjas tell me to walk 10 feet forward, something that's happened already and will continue to happen. Getsus makes an evil villain speech where he reveals all of his plans to me before fucking off somewhere. Upon entering the town, I find Getsus making another villain speech, this time to the people, and he's getting surprisingly good reception for somebody who looks like he should laugh into a mirror maniacally. That's when I meet Drayden Iris, the gym leader and his daughter here. He has a strange but oddly cool-looking beard, and then tells me to go challenge the gym and he'll tell me all I want about dragons. Now, honestly, I'm extremely worried about this fight. I'm not sure if Ursa can pull it off on his own, frankly, and he's kind of the only option I have. So I go up to the next route where I grab my encounter, that being a Vullaby, and search around for a Duskstone that I read is on this route somewhere. However, I for the life of me can't find it anywhere, so I eventually give up. However, I realize that with access to Surf, I can actually get several more encounters as well as a buttload of items I've just been missing this entire time. So I go on a conquest around the entire map in an attempt to find what I need. I head all the way back to the first couple of routes where I surf on Route 3, which is actually a new encounter zone. It's here that I catch a Basculin as well as grab a few items lying around. Basculin won't actually see any use this run, but its mere presence gives me a little extra security. Do you guys remember that cave all the way back at the beginning of the game where Charon ran in and saved some girl's Pokemon from being captured? Yeah, Wellspring Cave. Apparently there is a second floor of that you can only access with Surf, so I decide to make the descent. In here I find several items that will be useful for later, including the Sludge Bomb TM among a few other things, and it's around this time where I find out that forest encounter, Addles, was actually illegal, so sorry about that, but hey, he's dead now, so who cares. It's after this that I make my way down to the very first routes of the game, where I start surfing along the coastline. Here I catch a Frillish that I'll evolve into Jellicent. I named this bad boy Aspire for reasons I don't understand. And I actually find out on the nearby Route 18 that there is a gift Pokemon, aka a free encounter. This random lady hands me an egg, which turns out to be a Larvesta. This thing actually won't see any use because it evolves so damn late after the actual level cap of the game, so this thing basically doesn't exist. However, in the nearby grass, thanks to a little Dupe's Claws manipulation, I can guarantee myself an encounter with a Sock, which, I don't really have anything to say about this guy, he's just kind of here. Frankly, I don't think anybody has a lot to say about Sock and Throw. I know a lot of people give the Elemental Monkey some shit in this gen, but seriously? We're just gonna bypass this? This is fine? Whatever you say. After all this scrounging, I realize that I can also get an encounter from Driftvale, so I head over there and catch an Alomomola, which I promptly named the Wall 2, in order to honor his ancestors. As it turns out, there's a place called Mistralton Cave nearby, where supposedly Cambalion lies. However, legendaries are banned, as you know, so I won't be catching that thing. But in here are a few really cool Pokemon. You see, the only encounters that you can actually find in this cave are Boldore, Woobat, Axew, and Drillbur, but because of Dupe's Claws, I can't get a Boulder or a Woobat, so my only options are Axew and Drillbur. Now, as much as I love Haxorus, I honestly can't justify getting it here. It won't be able to evolve before Drayden, and frankly, Excadrill is too good to pass up on. So I activate my repels and wander around for a little bit until I find a Dust Cloud. There I can guarantee a Drillbur encounter and I catch it. After traveling through a little bit more of the cave, I can't fucking believe my eyes as I enter a place called the Guidance Chamber, an entirely new encounter zone. There, I get giddy because the only thing I can capture here is an Axew, which I properly do, having my cake and eating it too like a real gamer. This Axew is even a plus attack nature. Sure, it's minus speed, but hey, beggars aren't choosers, and I've got a fucking Haxorus coming up. It's here that an old man tells me about the legend of Cabalia, and I skip through all of it because of course I'm not actually listening to the story. Who do you think I am? There I find the real Cabalion himself and immediately run away because I don't use legendaries. So finally, after all that preparation, I decide to assemble my crack team of anti-Drayden gamers. First up is Ursa, the Beartic, who is definitely ready for this. Aspire, the Jellicent, who's bulky and knows Will-O-Wisp, and since I haven't missed any of those, I know this is going to turn out good. Brick, the Sock, who's honestly there as filler Pokemon. Hero, the Excadrill, who I have incredibly high hopes for. The Waltoo, the Alomomola, who can be used as a pivot and a wish passer later on. And Wise, the Whimsicott, who's incredibly fast and can spam Charm. At this point, I'm as ready as I'll ever be for Drayden. So, I get ready to battle. He leads out Fracture, and I lead out Ursa. Fracture sets up a Dragon Dance, which is probably the worst move he could ever make in his entire life, because Nevermelt Ice-boosted Icicle Crashes annihilate the poor boy. Druddigon comes out next, and unsure if Ursa can take too much punishment from it, I switch out into Aspire, who takes a Night Slash, which I did not see coming. Really, I did not think Beartic would be forced to take that. So I'm forced down to Iron, who easily takes a Night Slash. Now, Iron is frankly here just to deal damage and take names, as he gets crit on the first turn in. He hits a Rock Slide so as to avoid Rough Skin, but it doesn't really do much to Druddigon. Druddigon hits a Revenge, which takes Iron down to 24 HP, but honestly I don't really have any switch-ins, and I don't care too much about Iron. So he hits a Brick Break, which deals a good amount of damage to Druddigon, and he then soon after dies to Chip Away. I then paradoxically bring out Ursa. Now you might be asking, why'd you switch him out in the first place if you were just going to switch him back in right after Sock died? And that's a great question, without an answer. Ursa nabs the kill on Druddigon, and out comes the big bad Haxorus. Haxorus sets up a Dragon Dance, however Ursa fucking annihilates him with an Icicle Crash, and honestly I'm not sure why I ever doubted him in the first place. Frankly, had I just gone in with lead Ursa at any point, he would have completely destroyed Drayden, and that would have been that. But I was so paranoid that I went on a cross-country adventure to get as many advantages as humanly possible that ended up not mattering. But honestly, they will end up mattering, thanks to it bolstering my Elite Four team to heights it never would have seen otherwise. So I'm glad I did it at the very least. Drayden gives me a stupid-ass badge, and I move along to what I need to do next. Professor Juniper then walks me out of the gym and gives me a Master Ball for some reason. Nice. Perks of being a strong 10-year-old, I guess. However, before I make my way any further into Victory Road, I manage to go do a little bit of prep work. I use the Dust Stone I got to evolve Fuego into a beautiful Chandelure. Then I go to the TM store back in the Ice City and grab him Fire Blast, which is wildly inaccurate, so I keep a more accurate flame move in the back just in case I need it. Then I can shimmy my way on over to Victory Road. Now I only have one encounter left. After walking through all of these slow-ass doors, there's only one place I can get it from. At first I thought it would be the grass that was actually in the middle here, but that's a part of the previous route, so it's locked by Volibee. Speaking of Volibee, I'm going to go ahead and level him up. He was actually one level short of being able to participate in Drayden's gym as a Mandibuzz, so I get ready to evolve him. And nothing happens. And that's when I realized that Mandibuzz is another classic case of Gen 5 doesn't evolve until level 60-some bullcrap. Well, whatever, I guess I can find some use out of this thing if I slap an Eviolite on it. Maybe. I'm really disappointed, because Mandibuzz would have been a fantastic counter to pretty much every single member of the Elite Four, but instead I have to sit here and look at a Volibee for an hour. Well, whatever. At least it's not Gothorita. Then, making my way back to the main doors, I walk my way in, and approach the caves of Victory Road. It's here that I get my final encounter. Now, there's only 3 things I could possibly get. Those being a Heatmor, a Durant, or a Mienfoo. Now, Heatmor is the obvious worst out of the encounters that I could get, but thankfully I have a way to guarantee it's either Durant or Mienfoo. It's by simply not getting an encounter outside. Instead, I walk into the caves where I can only find those 2. After walking around for a little bit, I get Durant, which is mildly worse than Mienfoo, but I won't be using either of them anyway since I kind of already have my Elite 14. The decision would have just been easier had I caught Mienfoo. But that doesn't matter. With Kevin, the Durant, acquired, I slap him in the box and carry on my way. It's here on Victory Road that I fight some truly insane trainers, having to battle band for band with some of the craziest citizens of Unova out there. And after much traveling, I eventually make it. The Pokémon League. It's here where I'm given the option to customize my team, and I have to think long and hard about what I want. Eventually, the decision comes down to 3 Pokemon, either Kevin, the Durant, the Wall 2, the Alomomola, or Brick, the Vullaby, who, while unevolved, can hold an Eviolite to become pretty bulky, and actually manages to fully type counter every single member of the Elite Four. Now, you might remember in the last run how I brought a Girafarig with me to counter the Psychic Gym Leader. You might think that I learned from that mistake. I did not. I bring Brick the Vullaby, and after all that deliberation, I finally move into the Elite Four. Now, something you might notice about the Elite Four level caps is that they're all 50. That's right, every single member of the Elite Four has a level cap of 50. Now, I find this a little bit odd. I do like how there's not a particular strongest member of the Elite Four, and you can take them in any order you need to, but I don't like how this really complicates the level cap. I have the option of either sending in all of my Pokemon ridiculously underleveled to the first fight so that I don't accidentally overlevel for the coming battles, or I can use the power of modern technology to solve this problem. I simply level all of my Pokemon up to almost the level cap, and then, if any of them overlevel, I will immediately reduce them back down to level 50 using PK Hex. Now, some might consider this cheating, but I don't. I'm sticking by the level cap no matter what, and frankly, it doesn't mean anything because none of my Pokemon learn any moves at level 51. So I decide to begin with Chantal, who I decide will be the easiest of all of the trainers to take care of. Now, you might be wondering why I think Chantal will be so easy. Well, that's because I have Brick, the Vullaby, and all of his Dark Pulses. You see, I decide to test him and his Eviolite and their metal in this first challenge. It does not really go well. Vullaby does less damage than expected with Dark Pulse, and gets hit back for way more than expected with Shadow Ball. Eventually, he gets burned and manages to burn through several of Chantal's potions, but I get to a point where I have to switch Brick out. It's here that I decide to bring in Hero, who's holding the Soft Sand. So, when his Earthquake hits Cofagrigus, it completely annihilates even the defensive monster. Chandelure comes out next, and confident of Hero's speed advantage, I hit him with another Earthquake, which kills him instantly. Finally, the Golurk comes out, which threatens to completely annihilate Hero with his Ground Stab, so I bring out Wise, the Whimsicott, the God King of this run. He hits Wise with an Earthquake, which does pretty minimal damage. Well, I say minimal, but for a Golurk I was kind of expecting half. Thankfully, though, Wise knows Giga Drain. That, in combination with a Shell Bell, brings it down to a little under half, and heals Wise all the way back up to full. Golurk then immediately fucking kills itself with Curse. Which, I guess Chantal just wants to do the work for me. Jellicent comes out next, and Wise gets off a Giga Drain to heal up, but is forced out after taking too much damage from hitting Curse. Hero comes in on a Shadow Ball, baiting out a Water-type move, which allows me to freely bring in Aspire, who has Water Absorb, getting in completely for free. Then they have a 1v1, which ends with Aspire winning. With the defeat of her Jellicent, Chantal is taken down, and that's one of 4 Elite members beaten. Frankly, I'm a little disappointed by Brick's somewhat lackluster performance, but I'll just have to live with it. Next up is Grimsley, who is perhaps one of the dumbest looking Elite Four members I've ever seen in my life. Seriously, what is going on with his hair? He leads out into Scrafty, and I lead out into Brick. Brick immediately goes into a Fly in an attempt to do some damage to the Scrafty. He tries to sand attack me, but that doesn't work out since I'm a mile into the sky, and Brick does basically no damage with Fly, despite it being stab super effective. In fact, Scrafty does just about as much damage back with Brick Break. I wasn't expecting much from an Eviolite Vullaby, but I at least thought he'd be doing a little bit more. Brick then gets hit with a Brick Break, which immediately crits and kills it. Well, I guess it was a mistake to bring this thing in the first place, but whatever, I'll figure something out with the rest of my remaining team. After taking a long look at Grimsley's team, I decide that Hero is the best option to deal with him. And by that, I mean he's the best option to bait in Crocodile so that Whimsicott can come out and deal Killing Blow, as Wise Giga Drains the ever-living fuck out of him. Immediately after, Bisharp comes out, however Bisharp is completely incapable of doing anything to Hero, who immediately comes in and kills him with a single Earthquake. Next out comes his Liepard, but Liepard can't really do anything to Hero either, so Hero just destroys it like he did with the Bisharp. Next up is Caitlyn and her Psychic types. Now I wake Caitlyn up for a nap, which she must have taken about 10 seconds ago because N was just here battling her. But either way, she starts the battle leading with her Uniclus. I lead with Fuego. Now, Fuego is the only man for this job. I'm not exactly feeling confident about the Psychic Gym, since Fuego is the only thing that can even remotely beat it, and one critical hit can take him down, but I have to go in anyway, so might as well get it over with. He completely one-shots both Leoniclus and Musharna with a Shadow Ball, and then Sigilif comes out. Sigilif has Shadow Ball. Now, Fuego can live one Shadow Ball, but if he gets hit with a crit, which I am prone to getting hit by, Fuego is done, which is really bad because I need him going forward. Thankfully, however, Sigilif doesn't, and gets taken down by a Shadow Ball. Then, Gothitelle comes out, and meets the same fate, taken down by another Shadow Ball as Fuego levels up past the cap, but I send him rocketing back down immediately afterwards. The Expert Belt that I placed on Fuego before this fight has done some incredible work, allowing us to one-shot these Pokemon. I don't know if it would have happened without, but thankfully we get through with no issues. And finally, it's on to the gym leader I'm dreading the most, Marshall. I couldn't Will-O-Wisp the throw because it had guts, and that would just make it stronger. I couldn't bring out Fuego on the throw because he would just get hit with powerful Stone Edges and Bulldozes, and Hero wouldn't be able to one-shot him, and a similar story is in for Aspire. The first Pokemon I lead with is God King Wise, who immediately gets off a Charm. This, halving Throw's attack stat, makes most of his moves unviable. This means I can then switch to Aspire. You see, one of Throw's moves is Storm Throw, a move that always lands a critical hit, which is pretty dangerous. So I switch into Aspire, who can take it because it's a Ghost type. It's completely immune to the move, and so is at much less of a risk. Now, Aspire immediately gets hit with a crit Bulldoze, almost invalidating my efforts, but is otherwise fine, spamming Recover, Shadow Ball, and Surf to eventually take down a throw. Next up is Sawk, who is much less of a threat because I actually can shut it down with Will-O-Wisp. Aspire almost dies instantly to a critical hit Stone Edge, but thankfully lives and actually lands a Will-O-Wisp for once. However, now I need to switch out. Knowing Stone Edge is coming, I switch into Hero, and even if Stone Edge isn't coming, Hero should resist everything else. Hero takes a Brick Break, which does more damage than I thought it would, before landing a devastating Earthquake and taking out the Sawk. And finally, the big bad Conkeldurr comes out. So the first thing I do is switch out into Aspire. Now, despite Aspire's low health, the reason I do this is because Aspire is a Ghost type, and I know Conkeldurr should be going for a fighting move on Hero. Now, why I didn't just go into Fuego in case something went wrong, I don't know. But this does allow me to get a switch into Wise on a Stone Edge instead of a Hammer Arm. Now, this is the part where Wise has to really prove himself. So, the God King leads with the Charm, having Conkeldurr's attack stat. He immediately lands a critical hit Giga Drain, which does insane damage, then manages to stall him out with a combination of Charms and more Giga Drains until eventually the Conkeldurr dies, Wise completely proving he's the GOAT in that single interaction. However, Marshall has one more Pokemon, a Mienshao. But it can't do anything to Wise, who continuously spams Charms and Giga Drains until this one dies too. And so, Marshall, who I thought would be an incredibly hard member of the Elite Four to beat, goes down without too much worry, all thanks to the might of our Lord and Savior, Wise. Pretty soon afterwards, I teleport right out of there using the pad all the Elite Four members leave right next to their battle sites, and then I descend to the entrance to the Champions Room. Walking up the stairs, I find Alder and N talking. As it turns out, Alder is an old-ass man who's forgotten how to battle a lot, and so N completely handed his ass to him. N apparently isn't shocked that I'm here and tells me that this is no place for a battle, announcing that we'll battle in Team Plasma's castle instead. Now, first I wonder where this supposed castle is exactly supposed to be, but then N launches it out of the fucking ground and it rises around the Pokemon League, shooting off several metal staircases directly into the walls, definitely hitting a few support pillars and causing me to shit my pants. Immediately afterwards, Charon shows up while N leaves and talks to Alder. Apparently, Charon handed the Elite Four an L back-to-back-to-back, making that 3 in a row for those guys. He quickly gives a speech about friendship and Pokemon before telling me to go do my thing, so I run up the metal staircase and into Team Plasma Castle. Upon walking up a little bit further, the Shadow Triad, the 3 guys who've been telling me to walk 10 feet in the right direction I've already been going into before, tell me to walk 10 feet in the right direction I've already been going to before. That, and I can heal my Pokemon and access a PC here, which is definitely a nice touch. I can swamp out the dead body with something actually useful and get a full rest, getting all of my PP back. After a lot of deliberation, I decide that the teammate that will be taking Brick's spot is going to be Alomomola, or the Wall 2. After all, his physical bulk and HP is just incredible, and his wish passing is also nothing to be sneezed at. Frankly, it only really needs 2 moves: Surf and Wish. Everything else is just filler that I happen to have along the way. With that, I ascend to the last few floors of Team Plasma Castle, and eventually make it to the very top, where N is waiting for me. Almost immediately after I arrive, N summons his Zekrom to his aid, which flies through a fucking wall and lands directly behind him, yelling at me as loud as he can, before flexing his shit and electrifying almost the entire building. However, upon the arrival of Zekrom, my Lightstone begins to react to his mere presence, and immediately afterwards, Reshiram is summoned to my side. So, I catch the thing because I'm forced to, I name it Band, and then throw it away because I don't need that shit, and the end fight begins soon afterwards. So, N obviously leads off with his mighty Zekrom, and I'm forced to lead off with Fuego because that's who I had in the front. However, this isn't so bad. I know for a fact Zekrom will be going for Fusion Bolt, so I immediately switch into Hero. Zekrom actually has basically no options for hitting this thing. Its only attack that deals damage to him is Zen Headbutt. So I have an opportunity to set up a Swords Dance as Zekrom puts up a light screen, which basically does nothing for N here. Upon getting up a Swords Dance, I then decide to set up Sandstorm. The reason being is that Hero here is not a Mold Breaker Excadrill, but is in fact a Sand Rush hero. N watches, not understanding exactly what's going on, as I completely obliterate Zekrom. Next out, N sends his Kling Kling, but I know for a fucking fact he wouldn't possibly bring out that piece of shit against Hero, which must mean this is Zoroark, but that's exactly what I want. With Sand Rush, I'm twice as fast as him, and just completely obliterate him with a +2 Earthquake. Next out is Caracosta, who I'm actually afraid of. However, Caracosta has exactly one exploitable massive weakness, and that is to Grass. As it turns out, Grass is not ass, as Wise completely obliterates him with only a few Giga Drains. Next up, the Vanillix comes out to try and kill Wise. I switch to Fuego, who can resist most of its moves. It just sets up Hail in the face of an incoming Fire Blast, which tears it to shreds. Immediately after that, Archeops comes out to try and finish on Fuego. Thankfully, however, I can go into Hero, who resists all of its attacks. Hero gets in safely, only taking a Stone Edge and a Dragon Claw before landing a Rock Slide on Archeops, taking it down to less than half health, aka defeatist range. However, I don't want to risk Hero getting crit or hit by too much hail, so I switch out into the wall too, who can take as many hits as he needs to from a defeatist Archeops. After only a few seconds, it's dead to Surf, and he brings out the actual King Klang this time. However, Frag comes out on a Thunderbolt, which does basically nothing, and a few bulldozes later, and N is successfully defeated. He then whines a little bit about his philosophy being defeated as well, before getting uncomfortably close to my face again. Gatis then comes in and gives his whole villain speech about how he was just using N and how he's going to rule the world using Team Plasma. He then makes the comical villain decision of healing my team directly before actually facing them in battle. He leads off with the Configurigus, and I lead off with Fuego since I haven't a chance to shuffle my team around. However, this is actually great for me. Normally, I could just one-shot Configurigus with Shadow Ball, but that would bring in some problems later. So, instead, I switch over to Hero. The reason being that Configurigus has basically no good moves to hit Hero with. The best he can do is Shadow Ball, which does basically nothing. He switches in for free on a Toxic and starts to set up Swords Dances. I get up 2 Swords Dance before I feel like I'm ready to rumble and set up a Sandstorm immediately afterwards. Configurigus goes down to 1 Earthquake after accomplishing basically nothing, and next up is the Hydreigon, which sees a kill using Surf. Hero lets loose a Rock Slide, which I'm convinced will kill, however, it barely doesn't. I almost cry tears of sadness as I expect Hero to go down completely, however, Hydreigon gets hit with the absolute most clutch flinch I could ever ask for. Hero, the GOAT, really is the hero of this run like I expected. A few more Rock Slides later and Hydreigon comes out. And that's pretty much it. Bufflant comes out next, seeing a kill with Earthquake, but my Earthquake is much better and completely destroys Bufflant in a single hit. Seismitoad comes out next, and if Bufflant couldn't take it, this thing sure as shit can't. However, that baits in Electros. Now, Electros has Levitate, which means it's completely immune to Earthquake. However, because of Hero's Steel typing, it's being baited into using Flamethrower, and one member of our team in particular really likes that, as Fuego comes in and gets a Flash Fire boost from the Flamethrower. It drops a Fire Blast on Electros that kills it instantly, and then immediately Flame Bursts Bisharp, which can't take any of the heat either. And, with Ghetsis' last Pokemon defeated, he makes his villain monologue about how he would have gotten away with it too if it weren't for us dark kids, before he tries to convince us that N is somehow an evil mastermind that will carry on his plans. N, like a Catholic 13-year-old finding his first hot topic, gets conflicted about life for some time before deciding to stay out of it. Ghetsis is then carried away by Sharon and Alder, before N begins to take me on a trip over towards the wall that he busted down previously, so that he can talk about life and Accumulatown. Immediately afterwards, he hops on his dragon and leaves. And, with all of that, we are currently the reigning champion, or maybe unofficial reigning champion, of the Unova region. Honestly, it's in kind of a gray area if we are or not, but hey, we beat N, he was the champion before, and roll credits, baby, because that is the end of our hardcore Nuzlocke. Wow, that was an absolutely wild ride. I was not expecting to lose so many vital Pokemon on that run. But, by the skin of our teeth, we make it to the very end and claim another victory in this series. Thank you all so much for watching. I really appreciate you dividing even a small amount of your time to this video. I had a blast making this one, and honestly, the process has gone so much smoother than it did with the first one. Thank you once again for the viewing experience. I had a good time, and I'll see you in the next Nuzlocke, which will be coming out pretty soon.